Morning and welcome to the Assiniboia Community Committee for this Tuesday, January 6th of 2026. My name is Councillor Evan Duncan. I'll be chairing today's meeting. I'm joined by Councillors Dobson and Lukes, as well as our Senior Committee Clerk, Ms. Cowan, and members of the public service. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory. The homes and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Can I have a motion to accept the shows? And that's of our
November 20th, 2025.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. Any other business before we get to our reports?
Delegations today.
No delegations. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We'll move into it then. Item number 1 is the extension of time rezoning of Kenaston Snow Dump. Such a formal name. Located south of 1301 Kenaston Boulevard and west of the Canadian Pacific Rail line. Any questions on this?
So they just want an extension of time? Like, is there any plans in the work or anything? Do you know, or?
They submitted their traffic study sometime in the fall. There was some comments. It's a touch complicated. The traffic study was added as a condition of council for the rezoning. Since it's currently city land and there's a private proponent purchasing it, the obligations are contingent upon the traffic study of what needs to be approved. So there's been some back and forth as of this week even of an update to the traffic study. I have not heard back from Public Works yet on whether or not it's acceptable. I would expect 2-3 weeks.
Right. No, I remember this. I think we all remember this. When
Yeah.
it came to the committee, it was very complicated. So
Yeah, I had a brief conversation with Ms. Savage about this, and I'm not sure if she's available at all. If there's any other questions, I don't know that there are, but hopefully.
they only want a year, right?
Another year.
Yeah,
Like this year, so weed it out.
that's our typical extension is 1 year.
Yeah.
Sorry, Angie, Ms. Savage sent me in her place. She
Okay, great. Welcome.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. I'm okay with that. I can make a motion to what are we doing here? Supporting
Extend
the
to
public services. Yeah.
September
Extend it.
2023, 2026.
Yep. Okay, that's the motion.
All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Moving on to report number 2, which is plan approval of 1745 Kenaston Boulevard. Do we want to hear from the public service on this? I would. Yes. Okay.
Sure.
Please.
There's an existing co-op gas station, convenience store, and car wash at 1745 Kenaston. The proposal is to tear down the existing structures to construct a larger convenience store and car wash and 8 new fuel pumps. 2 variances were required for this proposal, which were approved by the public service. The first variance was for a reduced rear yard setback from 50 feet to 44 feet. The second variance was for no foundation landscaping. 14 shrubs would have been required around the foundation and are now required around the perimeter landscaping. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. So do you have questions, Councillor Duncan?
I do, but please go ahead.
Okay. So what exactly are they doing? They're just adding more pumps? Is that what it is?
Yeah, they are just tearing down the existing everything that's there at the co-op gas station and building everything again slightly larger.
So they're leaving the pumps, they're ripping down the building?
They're ripping down the building and the pumps, everything,
Oh, everything.
and rebuilding everything.
Oh, really? Okay. And are they doing a different driveway or what is all this?
Access will all stay the same. Yeah, access will be the same.
This will be the same. Okay. And then the landscaping is going around the outer edges. How many trees are going in?
14 shrubs, that's what have been required for the foundation landscaping. And so we're just requiring that since they're not doing the foundation landscaping to put those 14 shrubs around in addition to what's already on the existing landscaping on the exterior.
Okay. And what are they doing for garbage cans?
That I believe is all the same as before.
They have a picture of garbage cans in the report. So,
Let's pull that up here. Yeah.
they're visible ones or are they sunken ones?
Picture says sunken,
I believe that's sunken.
and the existing ones are above ground.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's like the semi-underground.
Earth bin.
Right.
And right there.
I don't know if that's clear, actually, to be honest. I'm looking at page 7 of the submitted plans. And it's I assume that's underground, but the picture does show above ground and then they're drawing in the upper right-hand corner.
Sure, so can the public service confirm, are they underground or are they above ground?
Yes, they are underground or like semi-underground, like an earth bin. Under the submitted plans
Pretty
for
above,
item
yeah.
2 on our agenda, it's the first page. So sheet 1 of 12 is, and then kind of at the south, yeah, I guess the south end of the property here. It's shown and labeled as proposed in-ground waste storage containers ×2 earth bins.
I'm not terribly interested in getting into the model or make of earth bin, but this seems more bulky and more like the old school style of bin here than we've seen with those Molochs before. Is this just them picking something off the shelf, or is this specific? Because it doesn't look as nice as some of the more recent waste.
Yeah, it looks like half of it is above ground, right?
Yeah, and that's I don't know if it's the same model or the same exact dimensions, but it's similar type that we have seen elsewhere in commercial sites where it's something sticking out of the ground, but it's visually smaller and better looking than a typical BFI bin, like an old school BFI bin.
And why are they talking about trees? I thought you said it was just shrubs.
Well, so there are the requirements on the exterior landscaping, the landscape buffering. That's where the trees come from. These shrubs are in addition to that requirement from the foundation landscaping that they're not doing. We're requiring those be then located in addition to
So they're planting trees and more shrubs?
and additional shrubs. Yes.
Okay. That's good. It's a pretty barren pavementy area over there, so. Wow. Wow. Okay, I don't really have any more questions.
Just in front of the gas bar there, but what are the three bowl shaped, I guess? Would that be propane? What is that? I see the gas bar and then I see three things in front of the entrance and exit.
Those are the underground fuel storage tanks.
Okay.
In the tanks, yeah.
Okay, so new convenience store, new car wash, new 8 pumps.
Mhm.
Well, I can make a motion then to accept the public services recommendations.
Councillor Lutz moves the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and that is carried.
Now, I do have one motion. I don't know, should we pause for 5 minutes or what do we want to do?
Probably,
All right.
if you'd like to, I can probably add it in quickly if you.
Or we can come back 5 minutes early and before 10:30.
Whatever works. It's 9:43 now. We have 45 minutes before the public hearing starts. So those that are paying attention online, we may return, let's call it at the 10:15 mark this morning or thereabouts before 10:30 to deal with
One more
some new
motion.
business. All right. Thank you very much. We'll be back.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome back to the Assiniboia Community Committee for this January 6th of 2026. We have finished with our regular reports. However, we do have some new business to hear that. Councillor Dobson, would you?
Yes, I would like to move that we suspend the rules to hear this report.
Thank you very much. Motion to suspend rules, call question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. I believe Councillor Lukes, you have.
No. So I have a motion that I'd like to send off to Public Works. I've got an intersection at Northtown Road and northbound Kenniston Boulevard. And over the past, well, literally 3 months, but we've had 3 collisions at this intersection. And over the past few years, there have been collisions. And I want the Public Works to conduct a traffic study at the intersection of Northtown Road and Kenniston Boulevard northbound, reporting back with the number of accidents at the intersection in the last 5 years, and make recommendations to increase safety to reduce collisions if possible.
Wow, I'm looking at the images here. That's a serious wall.
It's a very, very large, thick wall that everyone seems to want to hit. So not quite sure what's going on there, but asking the public service if they could look at it. So that's my motion.
Question for you,
Yeah.
before we call the question, I'll support this. However, is WPS aware of this intersection? And have they had any opportunity, like have you contacted them from your office to have them out there looking at any factors that might be playing into people plowing through a cement wall?
Yeah, well, in 2017 and 2018, I had the public service study this intersection because it's kind of interesting is that you could legally do a U-turn. You can legally do a U-turn on Northtown Road. And there's a fire hydrant there. I'm really surprised the fire hydrant hasn't been taken out yet. But I haven't talked to WPS about it because I haven't. But like literally in the last 3 months, there's been a collision once a month, and I'm not quite sure why.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question on Councillor Luke's new business regarding Northtown Road and North Boulevard on Kenniston. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Thank you very much. And with that, we can move into our public hearings for today, and I will turn it over to our clerk to lead us through the process.
Okay. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City's Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is a rezoning at 980 St. James Street under file DAZ 217 of 2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is a variance at 980 St. James Street under file DAV 220581 of 2025D. Please note communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. If you'd like a brief overview of the application from the planner.
Please.
Yes, thank you. The subject property is located on the west side of St. James between Ellis and St. Matthews Avenues. This is in the Polo Park neighborhood of the St. James ward. The property is approximately 28,000 square feet in size and contains a restaurant and drive-through use at Tim Hortons, which has been on this site since about 2002. The property is located in the Transformative Areas Regional Mixed Use Center Policy Area under Complete Communities 2.0, and it is currently zoned RMU, Residential Mixed Use. As a bit of history on this site, in September 2023, Council approved a subdivision and rezoning of land at 914 St. James and 980 St. James Street, this property, under file DASZ of 2022 of 2023. This was to accommodate a mixed-use development at 914 St. James Street, immediately to the south, and to reconfigure the lots on the subject site. This subdivision and rezoning application rezoned the entire site from C3 commercial corridor to the RMU residential mixed use district. So the rezoning today is essentially to correct this error that was made by the city as part of the subdivision and rezoning. When this restaurant site was rezoned in conjunction with the rezoning of 914 St. James Street. The applicant's proposing, as noted, proposing to rezone the site to from RMU to the C3 commercial corridor district. And this is to allow them to maintain an existing restaurant and drive-through. Drive-throughs are not permitted in the RMU district, which they were rezoned to. No changes to the site layout or building are proposed as part of this application. It's just going to remain the restaurant and drive-through as currently configured. The proposed development is also the subject of an associated variance application concerning the parking area's front yard setback. The Urban Planning and Design Division recommends approval of these applications because the rezoning will clean up the zoning on the site and essentially fix an error made by the city when subdividing and rezoning this back in 2023. The C3 zoning district accommodates the current rezoning, the current restaurant and drive-through use that are on the site. And as noted, no changes to the building or site layout are proposed as part of this development. And that's my summary, so happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
One question. So it's an RMU right now?
Yes, it was zoned RMU in 2023.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was zoned C3. This and the site to the south were all zoned C3. So this Tim Hortons site is seeking to go back to
the C3.
Yeah, that they had before 2023.
Okay.
And why was it rezoned to RMU?
Well, this site, like the Tim Hortons site and then the land to the south was subject to a subdivision and rezoning application. So they were kind of reconfiguring the lots between this Tim Hortons site and the development site to the south. The intent was to rezone just the site to the south to the RMU to allow a mixed-use development. But through that process, this Tim Hortons site was also rezoned. It was, the lots were kind of reconfigured through the subdivision, but they didn't want to change the zoning of the Tim Hortons site, but it was through that application.
So when you say reconfigured, did this like shape that's now presented here, was that a part of it? This odd kind of tail?
Yeah,
Tail?
yeah. That on our iView system, on our mapping system, it doesn't show what the new lots are through that subdivision rezoning from 2023.
So they're squared off now.
Yeah, on the south end of the
Yeah.
and that's shown in the admin report.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Is there any prospects of the south portion here being developed or?
Yeah, that was, so they have their rezoning. I believe that they came for plan approval to this committee fairly recently.
Okay.
But yes, the intent is that will be like a mixed use development, multi-story.
Okay. Sorry, Councilor, to cut you off there.
So, there was no charge to the Tim Hortons people for any of this?
This application today is made by the city and paid for by the city. The applicant is representing the public service and they can speak to that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
So first we'll hear from the applicant. The city is the applicant for this and Rack Hare is speaking as the applicant today in person.
Good morning, Mr. Hare.
Good morning, everyone. Share on the bottom?
Yeah.
I don't do this often, so. All right, here we go. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Rack Hare, Chief Zoning Officer, City of Winnipeg. I'm here representing the city as the applicant on this file. Just to give some context, This is, as Rob, the planner mentioned, a city-initiated rezoning. There is no new development being proposed. There's no change to the existing use or operations of the Tim Hortons. This application is essentially to correct an oversight related to a former subdivision and rezoning on these lands, DAS at 22 of 2023. As the planner explained, the key issue is that under DAS at 22 of 2023, that application created two lots, a lot 1 and a lot 2. And both lots were rezoned to RMU. The applicant's intent at that time was only to rezone lot 1, the southerly lot. However, lot 2 was included as part of the bylaw that was prepared for that rezoning. The intent was to keep lot 2 as C3. In terms of some key dates, the public hearing for DAS at 2022 of 23 was September of 23 at this committee. First reading of the bylaw, October 26, 2023. It was in April of 2024 during the administrative review of the bylaw being prepared for second and third reading, where we noticed this discrepancy between what was proposed to be maintained and the proposed zoning to RMU. We contacted the applicant. They confirmed it was not their intent to rezone this land to RMU. They wished to keep it as C3. At that point, we were bound by the council decision on the first reading. So we had two options, either restart the entire process or allow the applicant to proceed, execute the rezoning and come back for a corrective rezoning. Second and third reading was held at council on May 30th, 2024. We are here now to correct that rezoning, bring the site back to C3. Essentially, this restores the intent of the original application. There is a related variance, and that's required to recognize existing non-conformities on the site. Tim Hortons was constructed prior to the current zoning bylaw. It has a front yard setback that doesn't conform with C3, so this flipping back and forth means that a variance is required to maintain it as it is. So that's my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
I understand.
Yeah, I kind of understand it too.
Okay, great. Let's continue on then.
Okay, so there is no one else registered in support of this application. Just checking to confirm that no one else in the gallery is looking to speak in support of this application, and no one for opposition to this application. No one is registered, and no one for information. Okay, if there's any questions for the public service,
Any questions at this time? Seeing none.
the applicant is entitled to speak in rebuttal, but I'm not sure if there's, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a mover.
Sure, I'll move it.
Just get you to read through page 4, if at all possible, of the rezoning item 1.
Move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that the receipt.
Opposed? Carried.
I move that the receipt of the public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I move that the recommendations of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Standing Post Committee on Property and Development. Is that correct?
This one's EPCs. There's no
Okay,
changes.
pardon me. And the Executive Policy Committee via the priorities of rezoning process. And my supporting reasons are that this was just a small error. Both lots were changed from from C3 to RMU when the intent was only for lot 1 to be changed to RMU. So this is correcting an error.
All question on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
Thank you. Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision or rezoning, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Variance, item number 2. If there's no information required aside from what was presented already, Councillor Dobson, would you?
Yes, I would love to move it.
Thank you.
I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I move that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. Does not create a substantial adverse effect in the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including areas separated from the property by a street or waterway. is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. And I would like to use the same supported reasons I used in the previous.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that is carried.
I move that the recommendations of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All in favor? Opposed, carried.
And I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
Favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Let's move on to item number 3.
Item 3 is a closing at Falcon Ridge Drive, east of Powder Ridge Drive, for consolidation under or with DASZ 48 of 2025 under file DAC 6 of 2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following items will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 4 is a subdivision rezoning at 1778 to 1790 McGillivray Boulevard under file DASZ 48 of 2025. Item 5 is a variance at 1778 to 1790 McGillivray Boulevard under file DAB 221314 of 2025D. Please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. All participants in the Zoom meeting have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. If you are watching the Zoom meeting live on YouTube, please mute the YouTube audio now. If you'd like a brief overview from the application from the planner.
Would. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I'll provide a summary for the 3 items concerning this site today. The site is on the south side of McGillivray Boulevard between Waverly Street and Linden Ridge Drive. This is in the Linden Ridge neighborhood of the Waverly West Ward. The subject site's approximately 3.6 acres in size and is currently vacant land. It is zoned agricultural. This is also located in the Established Neighborhoods Recent Communities Policy area of Complete Communities 2.0. The applicant's proposing to consolidate 2 underlying lots on this site and rezone the land, the entire site, to the RMFS Residential Multifamily Small District. This is to allow the applicant to construct a multifamily development with 51 dwelling units. Plans submitted by the applicant show a mix of townhouse buildings with a total of 12 separate townhouse buildings. All buildings will be 1-story tall with a height of 18.2 feet to the top of the peak roof lines. However, the proposed dwellings will have an optional loft addition that purchasers can add if they wish. These optional loft additions would have a height of 22.1 feet to the midpoint of the peaked roof lines. A total of 117 accessory parking stalls are provided, which is a ratio of 2.3 parking stalls per dwelling unit. This proposed parking includes 2 stalls for each unit located in attached garages. In addition to the parking located in the 2-car garages, 16 visitor parking stalls are proposed. These visitor stalls are distributed throughout the entire site per the plan submitted by the applicant. The applicant's also providing 8 outdoor bicycle parking spaces for visitors or anyone else who wants to use them, and additional bike parking is expected to be able to be accommodated in the attached garages as well. The associated variance application is for the setback distance of the buildings from the McGillivray Boulevard property line, and for the proposed fence heights along McGillivray Boulevard. As well, there's an associated closing application, or DAC, which is required to close Falcon Ridge Drive east of Powder Ridge Drive. This closing will allow the applicant to purchase this land and use it for private access to the site. The Public Service recommends approval of this closing. Public Service recommends approval of the subdivision and rezoning and variance as well, subject to the applicant entering into a zoning agreement with the city. The zoning agreement will require the applicant to come to community committee for plan approval. So final plans will come to this committee and to the Director of Planning, Property and Development. As well, the zoning agreement recommends that the height of all buildings be limited to a maximum of 28 feet and limit the development density to a maximum of 55 dwelling units. Additionally, the Public Service recommends that the developer enter into a servicing agreement with the city, and the items addressed in this recommended servicing agreement are discussed in the ACG report attached. So that's the summary, and happy to answer any questions.
So one of the questions that I had, and I mean, it's a communication question, I guess. And I know that, you know, you have your systems here, but when the sign goes up on Falcon Ridge, when the sign went up, it just says road on Falcon Ridge. It says road closing. So people think the road's closing. Right? Road closing,
Right.
but it's not closing. It's becoming part of a bigger picture. Now, I don't have the sign, the wording of the sign, but it's not, it's misrepresentative
Right.
to the public. They don't know what that means.
Hmm.
Closing is road closing.
Yeah.
So that's a, you know, we want to communicate what's going on, and we don't want to have to be a, you know, scientist to figure out what it means.
Yeah.
So how can we change that? How can we, going forward? And can you send me an example of the sign? Do you have an example of what the sign says? Or could you read it to me, what the sign says?
I don't have the closing sign.
I could probably
Ready.
speak on behalf of that. I'm the real property officer, and
Do you
I,
mind just introducing yourself?
yeah,
please?
I'm Danielle Villamore, the real property officer for the
Thank you.
Planning, Property and Development branch. So I wrote the notice. The notice was posted in 6 locations within the community. I can read it to you. It says notice, and then DAC 2025 proposed closing of Falcon Ridge Drive east of Powder Ridge Drive for consolidation with DASN 48 of 2025. So the body of the notice says, take notice that a meeting on January 6, 2026 at 10:30 a.m. at the council building at 510 Main Street, the Assiniboia Community Committee will consider application number DAC 6 of 2025 for the closing of the rights of way as illustrated below. And then below that is a photo of the proposed closing. And further, take notice that the proposed closing bylaw will indicate that no persons or classes of persons will be considered to be interests affected by or entitled to compensation because of the said closing. The purpose of the hearing is to allow any interested persons to make submissions, ask questions, and register objections or support in respect of this matter. To participate in the hearing, register online at winnipeg.ca/public hearings or by phoning the 204-986-3856 by 12 o'clock noon, the business day preceding the hearing. You may also participate in the hearing by submitting your comments in writing. This hearing can be viewed online at, and it has that code, the HTML code, which is https://winnipeg.ca/council/video.asp. If they had questions, at the bottom of the drawing, it says any person who mutilates, changes, or otherwise tampers with his poster is liable to prosecution. But also at the bottom of the footer, it has information pertaining to the above application may be inspected by the geomatics branch of the Planning, Property and Development Department. And then they could call and speak to me. So it has my name and my number, my email address if they had any questions about the proposed closing.
So why wouldn't we write it out in plain English so people don't have to call you and take up your time why wouldn't, like, is it a standard template that we use?
Yeah, it's pretty standard. They've been using this for years now. It's just the way that I guess the charter is written, like any proposed closing.
Is that like a person walking by and seeing these 6 signs? That makes no sense to the average person.
Yeah, that's why we're free to speak to them if they have any questions, or they can email me for more clarification about the proposed closing. Initially, the closing once closed becomes like the whoever wants to purchase it. That's why they just use the term close, because we won't be owning, the city won't be owning it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get all that.
Yeah.
Like, I get all that because I pursued it, but.
Yeah.
So I'm just, you know, in my ward, 40% of the people weren't born in Canada and their first language is in English. So we're really trying to move forward with, you know, trying to make things a little more understandable for the public. Because what it does is it just loads up the staff to have to answer these calls and take calls. So is this mandated as part of the charter that it has to be written like this?
I'm not sure if it's mandated, but it's something that we could explore.
So
at a
could
later
you
date.
explore it and send me an email back?
Will do.
Okay, and find out, because we're just trying to make things a little clearer for the average public to understand, so they don't have to call and use up. I'm sure you're very busy, everyone's very busy. Half the time people can't get through. So if you could find out and get back to me if there's anything we can do to simplify these sort of signs, and I suppose it was just like a little yellow sign.
Yeah, they're it's not.
Yeah.
It's like 12 or
Sure,
18.
sure.
Yeah, and then they're laminated in yellow, and
Okay.
yeah. So there's 6 of them that was posted in the community.
Okay, if you could get back to me on that, I'd appreciate it. So I understand that now. I did have residents call that were very upset. And I explained it to them. I don't know why they didn't call you, but they called me. And closure means something different than what's actually happening. 'Cause
Yeah.
the road will still remain open.
It will, yeah. It will remain as an access to the development adjacent to it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Is there a secondary egress or entrance point to this proposed development?
No, the access is Falcon Ridge Drive. Yeah, no secondary access is proposed. This was, I'm not sure if the ACG speaks to it, but this was circulated to Public Works and fire emergency services. No issues.
It's interesting. I'm assuming this falls under the whatever condo court, where we don't have to follow the length of lane restriction for single family residential, right?
Yeah, so this wouldn't be so because this is a multifamily and privately owned, it doesn't fall under our requirements for public open right of ways.
So explain that so the public understands what that means.
If this was a development that was servicing multiple single-family homes, it would be open right of way that services them, that they would all front. Therefore, the city would have an obligation to maintain our level of service and our standards for safety, that the roads adhere to our specifications. And that would include less than 90 meters of a dead-end street and a full bulk turnaround that a fire truck could use. Instead, here they are using T intersections that the fire truck can turn around on, should they need to enter this facility.
Okay, so residents understand, because I've had that question too, I was gonna bring it up. So the question, so the city is not maintaining these roads in this development. The developer is doing snow removal, road repair, all of that. But from a safety perspective, the city has reviewed this, and there is access and ability for fire trucks to turn around.
There will be a final review done at the permit stage. And there's multiple things that can be adjusted if need be to accommodate the turning radius of the trucks.
And
So
then
it'll
who does
stay
the
here.
garbage pickup and everything?
My understanding, my memory serves me correctly, they have said that they will have private contractors do the garbage pickup because if they don't adhere to our standards.
Okay. So I had asked the public service to come and they were unavailable to come from Public Works to speak at this meeting about a secondary access point. Okay, so what I would like to do is just read this into the record so that residents can hear what the public service, I mean, they managed to put an email together, so I'd asked, why don't we have a secondary access? They didn't want to add access to McGilvery for such a small development. It wouldn't be justified giving the scale of the development. If you add a second access to McGilvery, you run the risk of this becoming a throughway shortcut for traffic to enter and leave the larger community. So I get that. I have that on Columbia right now where people basically don't want to go on Keniston, when they leave Costco, they cut through Columbia because they don't want to deal with the congestion and such on Keniston. So that could be a possibility that people would come through off McGilvery and cut through, creating more traffic in the neighborhood. No access is to be taken from McGilvery. Instead, vehicle access is to be taken from Falcon Ridge. Falcon Ridge Drive is classified as a local street. So the applicant submitted a technical review conducted by a professional transportation consultant, estimating the number of vehicle trips that would be generated by the development. So based on the review, the current traffic volumes on Falcon Ridge are 1,050 vehicles a day. So when this development, if it is to be constructed, they're projecting traffic volumes to increase by about 230 vehicles per day, between 1,270 and 1,420 versus the 1,050. So this would be an increase of approximately 25%. So the road, Falcon Ridge Road and Linden Ridge Drive absolutely accommodate this number of vehicles. So they, for multiple reasons, the public service, the engineers, did not recommend another access onto McGilvery Boulevard. And probably what he also didn't get into on McGilvery Boulevard is because McGilvery Boulevard is a collector, the more access points on a collector equate to more collisions. So they're feeling, because this is a small development, that an increase by approximately 25% of vehicular volume on Falcon Ridge Drive is acceptable. So I wanted to bring that to the public record because I did have residents wondering why there was not going to be another access point on McGilvery. And I also wanted to bring to the public record, and I guess I'll ask the public service on this. There was a sign posted on McGilvery about the development. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that is the frontage point for this lot.
Yeah, that's,
So maybe you could explain that so people understand why the sign was posted there versus on Powder Ridge or Falcon Ridge.
yeah, so the front yard is considered McGilvery Boulevard, or the north side of the property. And our posting requirements, public notice requirements under the charter, like the instructions would have said the poster needs to go in the front yard, that being McGilvery, rather than along Powder Ridge or elsewhere on the site.
Right.
So that's,
So the charter says we have to publish or post the signage in the front yard where the frontage is calculated, and the front yard on this property faces McGilvery,
yes.
which does make it difficult for residents because there's McGilvery, there's a big ditch.
Hard
like-
to pull over and
Yeah.
sign there, so, yeah.
So again, that is frustrating for residents. Has the public service ever considered, and I guess we could actually motion it. I mean, I know the charter says it has to go on the frontage, but to put a sign up where to possibly put two signs up on a lot?
Yeah, and that and I know that it's like there, you know, signs also need to go elsewhere on sites. I'm not sure what what the requirements, like what the instructions for posting were for this one in particular.
What do you mean? Are there different instructions for different lots or what?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, lots of a certain size or lots with different frontages. Like if this was a corner site, then posting would also need to go on the corner right of way. So but with respect to this one, like there is flexibility. It's not just like only in the front yard all the time. But with this one, I'm just not sure what the instructions were.
Who directs the instructions?
That's PP&D. That's staff in the zoning and permits office.
So you're the chair of PP&D. I'm just explaining this so you understand. You see how there's dilemmas that come up. I've had this come up.
Put right on Powell Ridge, I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, we had on Oakdale, we had another scenario in relation to the Oddfellows, right? Where the sign went up and, no one saw it. So this is a PP&D departmental consideration that we should really look at and consider where, when you have to go through a ditch and it's set back, 30 feet, 40 feet from the road, no one's going to see it. What size of sign was this?
This is a large format sign. I'm just seeing now, and so I don't know what the dimensions, like what the dimensional requirements are for a large format sign, but it's
So
different
really
than our
4x6
smaller.
or something.
Yeah. The general idea is it's easier to spot from a further
Sure.
distance, but the instructions that were added for this one is one large format poster on McGilvery Boulevard.
Right.
Yeah.
So the city has an obligation to post awareness and signage, but then we ask the developer also to do outreach. And when we hear a presentation, we'll talk to the developer about their outreach.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have a couple of questions in regards to this. So why, we have an existing street, why are we requiring that it be purchased?
So the original vision for the development would have been that the street would have extended and continued with the single family homes.
Yep.
However, that's not a viable option due to land constraints. Since they're going with a single site, we view our roads as being servicing multiple properties. And if it only services one property, it becomes problematic. Particularly here where since the road would dead end in a private property, there has been concern if a gate was installed, in which I believe they have intention to do, in which makes it difficult for our equipment to turn around and to finish clearing. So it basically comes out that since the Falcon Ridge only services a single site, it becomes a liability to the city that only services a single site, and therefore properly should be just owned by that site and maintained by that site.
And we don't, rather than get them to purchase it, just have them maintain it since they're already going in and maintaining their property anyway?
That becomes more complicated just on sunset clauses and how you would adhere to it. Also, it simplifies the matter in that the ownership transfers and it's no longer a liability when the maintenance agreement may expire or decide to become renegotiated. It's a permanent solution instead of
Yeah, I just think seems like an extra cost that is already there and we have a street and we're just flipping it over. And if we wouldn't have required that, then we would have avoided this whole confusion over what a street closure would be.
Yeah, and I certainly have experienced confusion over these signs before, and I'm sure Danielle will. Maybe it's good that we highlight this issue and we can hopefully improve it in the future. However, I think the closing is the best solution from the city's perspective.
Okay, so then other egress or entrance points. So Councillor Lukes asked about the egress or entrance onto McGilvery. I don't think that would be a great idea. But what about just an egress onto McGilvery? Why was that not something that was considered?
The I don't want to speak on behalf of the public service, but I will read the email. So, it's a small, like a very small development. So they didn't consider that. They just felt that because, an access to McGilvery for such a small development wouldn't be justified given the scale of the development. So it is a small development.
Yeah, I'm just for another exit point, like you don't have to have an in and out, but just an out.
I'm not sure if it was proposed. I think perhaps the applicant could speak to what their wishes were.
Okay, vision, we can have that. So then another option for egress point. I'm trying my best to understand where these laneways within the development dead end. I don't have direction here, but we will call it the northwest side of the development. Why are one of those not punched out onto Powder Ridge?
My understanding is the applicant would be the best one to discuss that. I think
I'm asking from the public service, why would we not ask for a second egress point?
we asked. I don't think they were amenable to it, and I don't think I don't think the fire and paramedics forced the issue.
I find that piece about the fire and paramedics where they pick and choose, where it's important to have certain lane length and not to put out fires or respond to emergency situations is interesting to say the least. But nonetheless, I get that it's not necessarily a city liability at that point in time when it's private property, but okay, if we don't have any answers on that and it's being put on the applicant, then I'll ask them. If they don't have an answer, we'll come back to you folks. Any other questions? All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
No, I don't have any more questions.
First, we'll hear from the applicant, Miles Crouch, in support of the application. Miles is joining us in person today. You'll just need to share the screen via Zoom. So if you click over to Zoom there. Yeah, and then on the bottom, share, and just select the screen you wish to share. Perfect.
Much more efficient than others. Congratulations. Excuse me. Morning. Whatever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hear me okay? All right. Hello and Happy New Year. My name is Miles Crouch. I'm the president of Karma Development and the one responsible for the development of the site we're here to discuss today, located at 1778 McGilvery Boulevard. I believe the councilors are familiar with some of my past projects, so I won't go into detail on our more than 800 homes throughout 10 communities that Karma has developed over the past 25 years. Getting to this hearing has been a long and detailed process spanning over 2 years. I understand I have a limited amount of time this morning, so I won't go into specifics on all the decisions and collaborations which was put into this development. I'm happy to elaborate further on any specific details which the councilors or the community might need further clarification on at any time. We started by putting together 3 different residential housing options, which we deem favorable. We then presented these options to the neighboring community. This was done at an open house on December the 11th, 2024 at the Linden Woods Community Center. We promoted this consultation with ads in the Winnipeg Free Press, flyers that were placed in neighboring mailboxes, and signage at the community center. We had more than 200 attendees. The vast majority were there inquiring on pricing, square footage, and density. After reviewing the feedback, it was clear the community was more inclined to support our lowest density bungalow style option. Some neighbors' concerns included the increase in traffic, sewer and water capacity, their property values, construction disturbance, and parking. So we got to work putting together a plan that would appease the community, plus all the different City of Winnipeg departments, including Public Works, Property and Planning, Fire Emergency Services, and many more. We then submitted our zoning application to the city and waited for their feedback. And we got to work on all the issues and concerns that the city departments put forward. This included a sound study, as Public Works was concerned for our future residents of potential traffic noise resonating from McGillivray Boulevard. As a result, we commissioned a sound engineer, F.A. Roberts and Associates, who found that the decibel levels on our property slightly exceeded the normal decibels of sound for a housing community like ours. This was primarily due to the city's request to expropriate approximately 7.5 feet of our property running along McGillivray Boulevard for future widening of the street. As such, our consultants recommended constructing an 8-foot tall fence utilizing sound deafening materials along McGillivray. In addition, we took it upon ourselves to conduct a traffic study. We employed Moore Transportation Consulting. They performed a thorough traffic study, which I've included in our application. This was conducted on February 2025, taking into account all variables, even looking into the future up to 2029. Long story short, due to the size and nature of our proposed community, factoring in our customers' demographics, how many bedrooms, etc., they concluded that no negative impact will be on the existing traffic. Public Works had issues with us utilizing a small portion of Falcon Ridge for access to our site. They informed us we would be required to purchase the approximate 150 square feet leading up to our property. In addition, we would be responsible for the cost and maintenance of the old infrastructure under the road. Aside from a few other minor concerns, property and planning and all the other city departments were supportive of our proposed development, as explained in their report. In order to facilitate our development, we require 3 variances. Thank you. A front yard of 7.5 feet running along McGillivray Boulevard. The city has deemed this our front yard. As such, we require this variance. Please keep in mind this is due to, as I previously mentioned,
Okay, motion.
Mention a time for order.
I need 3 more minutes.
Another 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Thank you, I appreciate
All in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries? Please go.
All right. So the first variance, like I just mentioned, is 7.5 off McGillivray instead of the 25 necessary. Like I said, the city has determined this to be our front yard. Please keep in mind this is due to the, as I previously mentioned, the city expropriating 7.5 feet from our property along this portion of McGillivray. We're asking for a 9-foot tall fence along the back portion of our property adjacent to the MTS storage yard. This is due to MTS stacking materials and operating heavy equipment along that bordering fence. The final variance is to allow us to construct a special sound mitigating fence mentioned earlier along McGillivray Boulevard. We're asking for a site, approximately 3.8 acres, to be rezoned from agricultural to residential multifamily small. This will allow us to construct 51 bungalow-style homes, ranging from 3-plexes to 5-plex buildings. Each will consist of an attached double-car garage, a full basement, backyards, plenty of green space, bicycle storage, and visitor parking. There will be a total of 117 parking spots for the 51 units. That's a ratio of 2.3 spots per door, far exceeding the 1.5 spots mandated by the proposed zoning. This includes accessible parking and visitor parking stalls. So 100% of parking for our residents and their guests will be located on site. In addition, we'll be planting more than 200 new trees and shrubs. We'll be consulting with a talented arborist to determine the optimal locations and species of vegetation. This is to ensure our greenery thrives, providing privacy and shade for our future residents. The roadways within our development will be no less than 20 feet in width. Our development is an infill nestled into the beautiful Linden Ridge community. Linden Ridge has some amazing amenities for our residents to enjoy. Playgrounds within walking distance, community centers, public transit, parking, restaurants, grocery stores, and lots more. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all the City of Winnipeg different departments that collaborated on this project. We worked hard to get here. In my experience, collaboration is key to an amazing community. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Questions, all committee?
Sure. Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, the helical piles, how do you say that? Helical piles, what are they?
Well, there's a few different types of piles, like some are hammered into the ground and some are turned in. So a helical pile is more like like a big screw, essentially, that turns in. So it doesn't have the big hammering effect. So it's quieter.
And it doesn't affect neighboring basements.
Exactly.
Okay, that's all I want.
So all of them have basements?
Yes.
All of them have basements?
Yes.
Okay. What is the setback from the property line of the homes on Powder Ridge to the building?
To the buildings themselves?
Yes.
Okay, so the Powder Ridge is single family homes. So they would have 25 feet to their backyard.
Yeah.
Then we would have constructed our 6-foot high pressure treated wood fence.
Right.
And then I believe it's 8 feet from our fence to the start of the building.
So I don't know, it looks like things, green dots are trees. Is that what that is? Or what are those green?
Yeah, those are trees.
Right. So you'll come back at the plan approval and you'll be highlighting your landscaping plan. So you do have room to put trees behind the homes on Powder Ridge.
Yes,
Right,
we plan on doing so.
okay. Now, there was a discussion brought up earlier about perhaps why you didn't put another access point to the north Powder Ridge connection.
Onto McGilvery.
Yeah, well, no, not onto McGilvery. Let's start.
Line it up
Powder
with the
Ridge
existing
first.
communities road.
Okay,
So that would, we would have to line it up with the existing communities road. I can't speak to why the city hasn't, told us to do so. Basically, we show them, there's been years worth of consultation, right? So we show them one plan, they come back, they say they want this or that, and then we make that happen. Just like the closing of the street. I mean, we were very surprised, quite frankly, that was something that they wanted.
right.
As far as we're concerned, it's a street accessing homes just like any other street of the city. I don't know why they.
And I guess they
picked
said,
that.
like, you could put a gate up, it could be a gated community, then they
Right.
could turn the machinery around. Like, I do get that.
Okay,
Are you putting a gate up?
No.
No, okay. So they didn't request you
Yeah.
to have a second access point?
no, they did not. I can speak potentially based on my past experience why they would do that. That street is a cul-de-sac kind of scenario. And
Which one, Powder Ridge?
Powder Ridge.
Right,
And it's for single family homes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how happy the residents would be
Right.
that now they have another street
Right.
feeding onto, when they originally purchased the home, it wasn't like that.
Right.
Now they're gonna have traffic and increase in, traffic flow. They probably wouldn't be happy about that.
Well, it's not a direct route out either. You have to go through the neighborhood. but-
Yeah, so I can kind of see why they wouldn't want that to happen.
Mhm.
Kind of a one in and one out limits the traffic, limits the amount of incidents that can occur. The same thing happened on Allard. We proposed 2 exits and entrance. They limited it to 1. They said it's just easier to control the traffic with a single entrance.
So talk to me then about the McGilvery. Like, I think you'd probably, did you look at doing some sort of easement and shared use agreement with MTS on their access point?
No, we didn't explore that. We would like to explore that when it comes to kind of delivering materials to our site. We'd like to be able to use that to deliver the larger materials or for large vehicles to access our site, just to kind of drop off. I think that would be great. But in terms of exiting onto McGilvery, it's 80 kilometers an hour. It would need to be a controlled intersection. Once again, I can kind of understand the logic behind that.
Okay, so you're saying they didn't request a second access point.
Correct.
And then when working with fire department people,
Yep.
they've reviewed it, obviously, they had to review it
Mhm.
and give feedback, so it's acceptable. I have a very massive development that has one access point on a roundabout in Bridgewater, so Bridgewater Trails. So I'm very interested, if we proceed with this, to help you or do whatever we can to maybe use that MTS access point to bring in and out stuff, right? We've had a long-term development on Falcon Ridge, the Brightwater development, that is a very massive development that I get it. It's been going on for years because it is a massive development. People are kind of getting fed up with that. I agree, I hear them. But it is a big development, right? Yours is much smaller, but it's still, stuff's gonna be happening, coming and going and moving. So, you've done quite a few of these developments in the city. You have done 2 in my ward that I'm familiar with. Well, my old ward and my new ward. Tell me, what is the demographics or the sort of the clientele that purchases these homes?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So we cater to a specific demographic. So I focus on what I like to call our empty nesters. So we have the ability to kind of construct a product to suit a specific demographic. And I do that purposely. I love these people. They're transitioning from a larger home. The kids are typically have left the home. They're selling a home within the neighborhood. So the average home in this neighborhood would range between $700,000 and $900,000. Our homes will sell for around $600,000. So it allows these people to sell their home, use the equity in their home to buy something smaller, more manageable, something without stairs. Stairs is kind of like a 4-letter word to these people, right? They're trying to get away from the stairs. So we put everything on one level for them. It's a condominium. So we cut the lawn, we shovel the snow, we clean their windows. We look after all the maintenance. A lot of our customers go to Florida or Arizona in the winter, potentially have a cottage in the summertime. So they use it as what they like to call their landing pad. They have grandkids, so they don't want to move outside the city. But they still need something that can be managed for them when they're not home. So we go ahead and do that for them. They pay a condo fee and we look after their property for them. We even change their furnace filters for them. So it's a completely maintenance-free living, essentially.
These are condos then, these are not
Correct.
townhouses, they're condos.
Correct. They're condos and they're governed by a condominium board. Typically, there'll be 5 or 6 residents who form this board. And then, everyone pays a condo fee. And like I said, we cut the lawn, shovel the snow, clean the eaves troughs. Everything's warranted by the condo as well. So when it's time to, let's say a tree dies, for example, it doesn't just sit dead. There's money in the contingency reserve fund to go ahead and replace that tree. Same thing when it comes to the fencing. You know, it's a natural material. Fences last 10, 12 years. You start to see them slowly, leaning down. Well, that won't happen here. We have a condominium association that looks after it. We have money in the contingency reserve fund. It gets audited every 2 years to ensure there's enough money in the contingency reserve fund to go ahead and do all the maintenance and upkeep for this development. So you'll notice that if you look at our developments and a lot of condominiums in Winnipeg, they look like I like to call it tickety-boo. There's no paint flaking off the units and so on. So they're well looked after.
So I have another question here, a couple more. So, we get people coming here begging for a parking reduction. You're coming with a parking overage. So talk to us about that.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Okay. So parking is always a key point when it comes to sales. Some of our residents have kids that will come visit them on certain times, holidays and so on. So it's really important that we have plenty of visitor parking for our residents. We also don't want to spill out onto the neighboring streets. So we don't want to have to utilize street parking on Falcon Ridge or around the neighboring community. I know that is a factor. When we met with the community, that was one of their main factors. Hey, where is everyone going to park? We don't want them parking on our street. We're accustomed to having X amount of parking spots. We want to maintain that. So we limited the density. We could have added more units, but it's kind of like, a good happy medium where we can include enough parking for everybody and still have the density that we need to move forward. So, parking is key essentially. And that's another reason why we use double car garages on Allard, my past project that we're just under construction. A lot of them are single car garages. Because if you look at the neighbors, the community who's going to be purchasing ours, those homes typically have single car garages. If you look around this neighborhood, they have double car garages. So chances are they're going to still want a double car, even though in about 50% of the cases, there's only one driver. They don't have two cars anymore. But they have a lot of heirlooms, let's call them, that they need to place in places, so they use it for storage. Also, the garbage bins will be put in the garage and wheeled out to the curb on garbage day. So
You take care of garbage day and all of that?
Yeah, that's correct.
So talk to us about the community consultation.
Sure.
Okay, because I had a few residents say they didn't get a flyer. Now I had a resident go, I went to one a couple of years ago, an open house, and I guess time flies, right? So
time flies, and this process takes a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into a lot of details. We used to have a pre-application process here at the city, which I loved. It really sped things along. It was a great way to communicate with all the different departments. That has gone now.
Yeah.
So now everything it took an additional, I would say 6 to 8 months for this project to get to this level as a result. I'm sure the city has reasons and that's fine by me.
Sure.
But fair enough. There were some of the homes in the area that didn't have mailboxes.
Right.
So what we did then is we put our flyer in between their screen door.
Right.
Some cases we just put it on the window of a vehicle that was parked on the driveway. We did everything we could, but without a mailbox, it's tough, right? And that's why I placed ads in the Winnipeg Free Press,
Right.
just so everyone would know about it. We did have close to 200 attendees, so there were a lot of people who did get the flyers and did show up.
And that's a lot of attendees.
It was a busy day, and we gave out a lot of information. We also had a website. We have a website up where they could look at what we're building. They could email us any questions, and a lot of people did, and we got back to them. And I think that's why you'll see today that we only have a few people here looking for more information. I think we did a pretty good job, giving information and, quite frankly, limiting density. I mean, we had proposed one of our developments that had well over 100 units, which would have been great, quite frankly, but it wouldn't have been so supportive. So we need to work with our neighbors. It also comes down to when it comes to construction itself. we have an open door policy. So once construction happens, there may be someone who says, hey, you put mud on, one of the big trucks put mud on the ground here. What's going on here? So we have an open line where they just text us, usually myself or Adam, and we get on it right away. We're not a large developer, in a different city. We're local. I only live a few blocks away, and I'm on site every day looking after even the smallest details.
So I have had a lot of drama with the Brightwater one because it is a big development. There's a lot going on. They did a big parkade in a very wet season. So there was a lot of drama with the mess. Yeah, I'm really hoping that you can somehow cut a deal with the MTS crowd and access off McGilvery. But if you can't, then how long does it take to build something like this?
Yeah. So there's certain stages where it is disruptive and others when it's not.
Yeah.
We have our own street cleaner. So we do our own street cleaning, and it's done pretty much every day when we're done. That's one of the things we do is we street clean and we pick stuff up. I'm a car guy myself, so I totally understand not getting your car all muddy and dirty on your way home. To answer your question, it takes about 18 months
Right.
to get everything done. However, half of that is finishing the units. So it's not heavy equipment coming or going, it's finishing carpenters, it's putting in the countertops, flooring, paint, and that is not disruptive. It's pretty much the sewer and water
Right.
and foundations,
Right.
which is disruptive, which would last about, it also depends on sales. Because if we sell them all, then happy day, we get to build them all right away.
Right.
And it's just like an assembly line.
So you're like, so this could be a staggered thing though?
We pre-sell
Right.
because I have to in order to appease the bank, essentially.
Right.
So we won't start building unless we have about 75% sold.
Right.
In my experience, in this neighborhood with this type of product, they'll be sold in I don't want to say it out loud because it might be bad luck, right? But it'll be sold quite quickly. I've sold a project, Centennial Park, which you might be familiar with. We won several awards, Winnipeg's most innovative infill community. We sold 91 units in 6 days.
Yeah.
It was a record. It was a fantastic location. I think we did a fantastic job with pricing, and there was a big need for that type of product in that neighborhood, River Heights.
Right.
And I believe there's a huge need for this type of product in Linden Woods, Linden Ridge, and so on. It's a lot of my friends' parents still have these, 33,000 square foot, 2,500 square foot, two-story homes, and they don't want to move into an apartment-style condo.
Yeah.
They call them birdhouses.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not moving into a birdhouse. I want a bungalow. I want a backyard. I want a garage. I want a basement. These are things that they're accustomed to. And they're not ready to go into retirement communities. So it's a nice kind of stepping stone. Usually they live in them for about 10 to 12 years before their next chapter.
And so there's a 10% fee that you end up paying, right? Or 8%, what is it? Because you're rezoning, are you rezoning this? Yes.
Yes.
You're rezoning this. So there is a fee that you pay to the city. I had some residents concerned that, what are we gonna get out of this? We're adding density to our neighborhood, but what do we get out of it, right? And two, I think you brought this up on multiple occasions, that the funding that the developer pays goes into improving parks and green space and the like.
Totally. If I may add, that is a very small portion of what the community is going to receive. Right now, it's a piece of property zone agricultural. So I believe we are getting, your tax base is very little. I think it's like around $4,000 a year in property taxes.
Yeah.
Once we build 51 units, it's going to be close to 400,000 in revenue annually. And this is forever. This is for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's the majority. And that, as you guys know better than anyone, goes directly into infrastructure for that community.
Yeah.
$1,800.
Yeah. 1,800.
I'm stand corrected.
For the agriculture. So this property, it is a very established residential neighborhood, so change is challenging, right? I know it was challenging with the whole Brightwater development. And we have a beautiful park in there that could use some improvements, right? So I will be looking at doing improvements with the funding that is generated from your project. So that's a positive for the neighborhood. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I know there was, before I was elected, I remember actually reading about it. There was some high drama about a very tall apartment block potentially coming in here. There could really be a lot more density than what is being proposed that probably the city would accept, medium density, whatever. But you're choosing to keep it, I'd say probably one of the lowest densities other than single family that there is for this neighborhood, which, I mean, something's got to go in there because it's just an empty piece of land in a highly desirable area, right? Close to, I say it's desirable because of all the shopping and such that's nearby. But, I have friends that live in Linden Ridge. It's a very tucked away, sort of just tucked away place, right? That is very beautiful. So, okay, I don't have any more questions right now. Anyone else does?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned that you'd be responsible for the maintenance under the existing city road that you're purchasing.
That's scary.
It is, because the infrastructure is about 25, 23 years old. And I didn't want to get into those specifics today. It's kind of like one hurdle at a time scenario. But yes, we would be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of not only the road, but the sewer and water that's underneath the road.
Do you have any idea what that could cost if it had to be replaced for the condo corp?
Yeah, I do, because that's what we're being charged for it. So I'm pretty sure. Would you like the number? It's about $345,000.
Yeah, I know the public service wants to get the cash for this to turn it over and less of a liability and all the rest, but that's a huge burden to put on a future condo corporation. On top of already the 51 other units. How about the egress points here? So we have the one to Falcon Ridge. It's okay. I'm looking at it in front of me too. And then we have the next one to the south that I think would not abut a property, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we didn't organize it. Like when we did Eichfeld Way, we made our cul-de-sacs to line up with the existing streets because that's what the city asked us to do, quite frankly. So we designed it that way. This is private property, so we didn't factor in any type of joining up with existing roads.
No. But I mean, are you opposed to having a second egress point to this development?
I mean, at this stage, it would change a lot. It's kind of like a domino effect. Yeah. If you move one little thing, I mean, we'd lose density. We would have to go back to fire department. We would have to, so to answer your question, at this stage, we've come all this way. We've consulted with everyone. Yes, at this point, I would just like to move forward. I think we've done a lot of work, and I think it's a fantastic development the way it is.
Okay. I hear you on that. I mean, I get the arguments of you'd have to go back, but at the same time,
I don't really want to see it go through Powder Ridge and all those residences.
yeah, that's
I
right.
really wouldn't want to see that because it's such a convoluted way where Falcon Ridge is direct and more of the corridor in the community. And I again, just from seeing and dealing with such scenarios on major corridors, when we add more access points, I really wouldn't want to see an access point on McGillivray. McGillivray is a very, very busy stretch. We are looking at some point, having to deal with, do we put lights at Linden Ridge when people come out? Once this Brightwater thing is finally built, and there's another phase coming yet too. Maybe at that point at McGilvery, we'll have to put a set of lights, but the less intersections on McGilvery, which the highest collision intersection is McGilvery and Kenniston right now. So there's a lot of action on McGilvery.
It's wild to think there's no controlled intersection there.
Yeah, I know.
But that's a discussion for another day. I do have another question. The optional loft piece, so what triggers that?
Yeah, so basically what that does, it doesn't change how many bedrooms that we put in the unit. It gives our customer the option if they're okay with stairs. So that, like I said, I don't know this. Linden Ridge, they may or may not be, but it allows them to build a fantastic ensuite up there. So it's about 450 square feet. And they can build an ensuite with a master bedroom, or it's called a primary bedroom now, excuse me. It's a primary bedroom with an ensuite up there. And then on the main floor, they can turn one of the rooms into a den or an office. And that happens after they purchase the unit. So the units are 1,000 square feet, let's say. It would go up to 1,450. This may fall within their budget. It may fall within their ability to climb stairs. We just give them the option, just like finishing a basement. If someone wanted to put a rec room in the basement.
So the public service says they want to cap you at 28 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I can build a single family home at 35 feet right now. Why are you amendable to 28 foot?
I think 28 feet still works for us.
Okay, so then why would you, especially on the,
Right, you're on?
yeah. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Sorry, I'm just gonna get out of my street view here. So on the eastern border of your property, like why would you not look to do 2 stories there? I know the loft gives you the option, but not a full 2-story. Like whose privacy are you invading?
Okay, I'll tell you the reason.
Sure.
It's based on sales. So Allard, which you're familiar with,
Yeah.
we have 12 2-story units. Okay, we have 80% of the project sold, and about 30% of my 2-story units are sold.
Okay.
It's the demographic with the stairs.
Yeah.
They just don't want a 2-story. That's not what we're building. We're building kind of a smaller condominium
No,
complex.
and I know, and anybody in Linden Ridge, like not outside of my wheelhouse here, but I can tell you that the folks in Westwood there, like this is exactly what they wanted, moving out of those ginormous homes along the river and whatnot to stay in their community, right? Like
Exactly. And they could go ahead and build their own home somewhere else or design a 2-story home. It's not exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to comment on the walls that you're building on McGilvery and along the industrial. I mean, like, it's a great addition here and will be well received by future residents. I am interested, and this will be more of a question for the public service of like, why did they not require that? I get that Linden Ridge is not a new community, but it's just a wood fence along McGilvery did you give that as an argument of you didn't require it along these single family homes?
No, sir, I don't argue with the city of Winnipeg.
Okay. And then, I mean, I come back to this purchasing of a city roadway. I don't know that I'm super supportive of that. Especially putting that burden on the future condo tenants there. I mean, it's not a new piece of infrastructure, which is problematic for a condo corp that's going to be new and have very little reserves should something go wrong right off the hop. But
We do have to add about $40 per month per door in our contingency reserve fund for the repair and maintenance of that infrastructure. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but yeah, you're right. It adds up, and it would be up to our condominium corporation to go ahead and redo it. I'm not sure of the lifespan. It could be another 25 years. I'm not sure, it's not my expertise, but we did add in our budget in the contingency reserve fund to go ahead and repair that down the road.
And then just a question on I mean, I'll get heck for this, but why not a gate? Like, why not a scan-in gate? I know there's been complaints, like I think back to the Wellington development and people were up in arms. How dare you put up a gate and restrict people from being part of it? I don't mind the idea.
Well, quite frankly, that would be up to our residents to do. So it's a condominium corp, so they make those decisions. So I don't think it's up to me to determine all the variables within their own community. So once they form their own board, if they choose to do something with security, put a gate up or do something like that, they're welcome to do that. It's just like I can't say, oh, you're only allowed to have one dog or you're not allowed to have a dog. You know, that's up to them to determine. They're the people who are living there. So we give them, you know, the flexibility to go ahead and implement that if they so desire.
Questions? Nope. Okay, we'll move on.
The only question or the only comment I have is, when you come back for plan approval, I'd really like to see really robust tree planting, backing onto the homes on Powder Ridge.
I agree with you 100%. There will be, like I mentioned, we're consulting this arborist and Your Honor, I see him taking notes right now on everything. And it is important to us to add as much greenery as possible. It does a lot. It doesn't just beautify, it actually adds to our absorption rate as well. So when it rains, you know, we don't have to either run off water, and it's also the privacy element of things. So if you look at our developments, you could see that we're a huge believer in vegetation for privacy as opposed to fencing, you know, and stuff like that. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see how many trees that are planted on the site.
Yeah, and I am glad I'm familiar with your developments, and I have no issues from the developments that you've built or from the people around the developments that you've built. So it's great from a counselor's perspective of calls and emails, right? I'll continue on with Brightwater dealing with that one.
Yeah. If anyone's, you could, I'll give you my cell phone. You could text me if there's any issues, and I promise to respond right away.
Yeah, I mean, it is, you know, it is a community that has had a lot of construction issues going on with this very long, big, huge project that got delayed for 1.5 years due to financing, a lot of issues, right? And it is an established community. But I do think the community realizes something has to go in there. And I do think many of them were aware of the fact that it could be a lot denser, could be a lot higher. This does sound like it finds that sort of balance.
We have 3 other people to present here. I'd like to just take a quick 4-minute break to take us to 11:55 if at all possible.
Okay.
Is anybody opposed to that? No? Okay, we'll break here for 4 minutes and
Start
start back up
time.
at 11:55. Welcome back to the Assiniboia Community Committee for this January 6th, 2026. We are on item number 3, which is combined hearing of 3, 4, and 5. We have more folks to hear from, so I'll pass it back over to our clerk.
Next to speak in support is Daniel McGibbon, who's joining us in person today. You have up to 5 minutes for your presentation.
Hi, my name is Daniel McGibbon. I don't have much to add. I'm just, as I was going through the report prior to the meeting, I just noticed a couple of just clarifications just in the description of the proposed development. I think I briefly mentioned it to Robert. Is this something that I should interject now that can be amended on the documentation, or how is that best to phrase it? It's actually been addressed in the conversations that have happened so far, but it's just a clarification of the way it was written in the report. So in the page 15 of the report, there's a section that says all buildings will be 1 story tall with a height of 18.2 feet to the top of the peak roof line. However, 17 of the proposed dwellings will have an optional loft addition. That needs to be clarified to all of the proposed dwellings will have the potential for an optional loft. So it's just that I understand what happened. There's some color coding on the drawings that were submitted and some assumptions were made. So nothing further really to add to that. That's it.
Thank you. So just for clarification, the report cannot be changed. However, we can make that a condition in the,
The report's been submitted, but we've noted on the public record the change, so.
And elsewhere in the document, it said correctly.
okay.
That's all.
We note that on the public record.
Questions?
Can address it.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So in regards to the lane length here, we've had an interaction in the past regarding lane length
Yes, we have.
and stalling out developments.
Yeah.
So if this was single family, and there were the turnarounds and whatnot, do you think that it'd be an issue with lane length, or would you go ahead?
So currently with as designed now, we have talked this through with the fire department, which is the real issue. Actually, no, garbage is not, city garbage collection is now more restrictive than fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Gotta get that garbage.
a fire truck is willing to drive down any one of these two offshoot lanes in our development and back up and use that hammerhead turnaround and then leave the development. But I can't remember the exact number, but a garbage truck is not willing, it's only willing to drive so many feet into a dead end before they will stop. So that, but we have complied with both. We have complied with the fire requirements, and we'll probably do private pickup is what we're proposing right now for the development, which honestly will be probably the same contractors, but they're not working to the same restrictions when they work for the city. So it's just a free market out there.
Any other questions? No, seeing none. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next to speak in support is Yaron Walters, speaking in person.
You'll remember that committee when we have other proposals that come forward, say potentially in my ward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I got 2 minutes here. Okay, sorry. This is briefly again. I guess I'll just briefly address the points of questions that were asked of Miles there. I guess number one is the roads seem to be a topic of conversation, or the access routes. I was the one spearheading the initial conceptual design and going back and forth with Robert and with, I guess, maybe some junior planners at the time. The issue of having a second access point almost died on the vine within about the first couple of weeks of discussion. It just didn't seem necessary, primarily based on the limited density, as Councilor Lukes had pointed out there, as well as the fact that the danger of turning onto McGilvery, and then more importantly was the cul-de-sac sort of idea of coming onto Powder Ridge Drive and having just sort of more of a residential feel than a straight shot in for Falcon Ridge. So it was sort of abandoned pretty early in the process. Interestingly enough, just only about 4 months ago now or so, when we started really having conversations regarding Falcon Ridge Drive and the purchasing of that, Public Works has suggested that we either provide a fire truck turnaround within, like a full turnaround within the site, or purchase the road as an option. I wasn't really understanding it exactly, but it was sort of a road that led to nowhere, so it was a dead end road. So we kept it as a public road and added the cul-de-sac. It would be okay, but then we couldn't access our other the other units from the fire truck itself. At that time, I would have expected the conversation of McGilvery access to come back up, and it wasn't breached at that point. So it just went directly to Falcon Ridge. I do think there are some design solutions that we could incorporate that in, although I'm not sure where the quality of it is. I don't see it being a better solution in that respect. But we definitely be open to exploring it. I don't see it as being a better solution anyway. If anything, it's more of an adverse risk from multiple levels. As far as the heights are concerned of the buildings, Miles you'd asked Miles regarding that. We'd actually one of Karma's mantras is to always keep their main floor, their 100 level, as low as they can due to stairs. So we're keeping only usually about 3 to 4 risers to enter into the main floor of the house. By doing a cab over design, a garage is already 2 feet lower than the main floor. So now we've eliminated 4 more steps up to the second floor. So a loft ultimately has less risers to get up to than a full second story would. It would stack right on top of the other house because your garage is lower than your home. So that's the rationale behind that, as well as the privacy. I would also assume that SLR at some point in time will be developed into residential too, likely a high rise of some sort. But so as far as the privacy, we were trying to keep privacy on all sides. The design also doesn't have any windows on the second story facing the rear. They're all facing the front. They're over the garage. And if I could just have one more minute just to address the Falcon Ridge Drive scenario itself. I too have been having a hard time understanding why the services are being purchased, because it really is just a conduit to get to the project. Like the road, that piece of Falcon Ridge, the services were going to be leading to the road anyways. So the situation hasn't changed much. Again, purchasing it, I understand from a maintenance standpoint, it's the services underneath. We also are, we're just sort of made aware of this on December 30th when the report was released, that there's also some conversation about services being purchased underneath Power Ridge Drive for that area where there are no abutting neighboring houses. So that number that Miles was discussing of 350,000 or so, I think it's probably 2 times that right now, in terms of conversations with Public Works we've had. So we're definitely going to have to, I guess, deal with that hurdle when we get to it after we get past this one and see what our real costs are from the servicing agreement. That's really all I have to clarify at this point. If there's any questions.
Yeah, let's go over that cost again. So how does that number double?
What you figured out on the December 30th? Is this like new news to you?
It was just on the zoning report that was issued. That was only issued at that point. The Appendix B, I think, from it. I regretfully did not review it over the holidays, and then only saw it yesterday when I started to read that document in detail. The numbers aren't. There's no numbers outlined in this. This is all speculation right now. Conversations we've had with Public Works representatives. So there's no hard numbers attached to this, although if we did, the number of 350 was tossed around for Falcon Ridge, the same sort of linear footage is there for Power Ridge Drive, so doubling that is sort of
where on Powder Ridge, like what?
where we're talking about the potential approach.
Right.
That area there, I think there's a purchasing of services for that run of road as well, because there's no residential houses now coming off of it. It was, I didn't expect to see it myself. I understand the concept behind it, but again, I didn't want to address this today so much in detail, but until we actually saw the servicing agreement or saw the proposed one and see what we needed to deal with.
So this is something the public service can speak to?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we'll let him finish his presentation and then, okay.
Yeah, that's right. So it's Power Ridge Drive. Any other questions, was there? I think so. I'll answer.
Okay.
Any other questions at all, committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we have no one else registered in support of the application, just confirming that no one else in the gallery wishes to speak in support of this application. Okay, we have no one registered to speak in opposition, confirming no one else in the gallery is wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Okay, we do have someone for information. So John Sinkowski.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. You have up to 5 minutes for your presentation.
Councilors, committee members, thank you, and developers. My name is John Sinkowski. I live in Linden Ridge. My property is 86 Powder Ridge Drive. Very familiar with the area. My home will probably encompass the largest footprint next to the new development, so obviously have an interest. One of the main concerns, traffic density in the area. You said you did a study about 1,000 cars a day, 250 added with the new development. Does that include the Brightwater retirement residence and the other residence that's going to go up beside that? Was that included in the study? And then really, there's only 2 ways out. There's Linden Ridge Drive and Dover Court. There was talk about maybe access to Powder Ridge Drive, totally redundant, because you'd be making one turn going 50 feet and coming back onto Falcon Ridge. So you'd be wasting your time. There's new fencing going up on McGilvery, soundproofing, great idea, because a lot of the sound issues are with the semi-trailer trucks that use their Jake brakes when they see they're not going to make the light at Waverly and McGilvery. Talked to WPS about it. They basically told me they can't do anything because they put a car there, the truck's gonna see it, they're not gonna use their engine retarders. So I talked to the guy that did the sound testing, and that's when you get your sound spikes, when those guys use their engine retarders. So you're putting a new fence along the east side. The fence adjoining my place running down Powder Ridge, once you get your equipment in there, do your ground prep, sewers, everything, that fence is gonna come down in a strong wind. So you're gonna need to address putting a
Let's
new
get you to
fence
direct your
there.
comments through the chair here.
Oh, sorry.
Together, no
Yeah,
problem.
that fence will not survive. And there's a swale there right now. I know because I've put in permits to do some building. That swale and groundwaters cause that fence to be like an S now. So nobody's gonna spend $500,000 on a property with a fence that's ready to fall down and it's comes 2 feet onto their property or away from it. I have a question about parking. I know there's the double garages. Is the driveway gonna be large enough to encompass another vehicle parked on the driveway in front of the garage? Again, going back to traffic density, walking routes along Falcon Ridge, there are no sidewalks there, so it's very congested at times. And it's just gonna become much more congested. I like the idea of possibly looking at a maybe exit only route by the MTS, Bell MTS building, because they use that all the time. They're coming in and out of there onto McGilvery all the time. If somehow if we're leaving our neighborhood and you're leaving Linden Ridge Drive, you're coming onto a yield and going on to McGilvery when applicable, maybe we can do that at that MTS building also and have it just an exit only. That would relieve a lot of traffic on Falcon Ridge. And really, other than that, I welcome a development there. I think it's a great idea. It's just the time to address all these little things is now and not after it's halfway done.
All right, those are your comments?
Yep, that's it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
I just want to comment on the traffic volume. The traffic volume that was estimated and provided to me was for Falcon Ridge from basically the new development to Linden Ridge.
Right.
They indicated there'd be about 25% more traffic. So I don't think the Brightwater crowd or any of those folks will be going down Falcon Ridge. Right?
No, but then they will go one of two ways. They will either
Yeah.
go west or east, and then that all filters on to the 2 feeder routes onto McGilvery. So
Right.
there will be
Right.
an increase.
So, yeah, so it'll increase on Linden Ridge
Yeah.
north, and if they decide to go all the way down
Mhm.
Falcon Ridge, which I don't know why they would, but those are collector streets, right? Which take a higher volume of traffic, so. And we are very aware, I've been working with the folks at the 10 Linden Ridge, the condominiums related to whatever's gonna happen at that intersection once that apartment block gets built.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure eventually lights will have to go in there,
Which is unfortunate, but
you know. But I know.
it just slows everything
Lights on
down.
McGilvery. So, but that's a ways off yet from that, so, yeah, I just wanted to add that to your points that you brought.
Yeah, so, I don't know what the viability of having a maybe exit only out of the new development onto McGilvery via that Bell MTS access, but I mean, then that would give you the possibility of either continuing down McGilvery or people going north or south on to Waverly. So,
That fence that is there already,
yeah,
whose fence is that? Like it was,
I guess it's, was put in when the community was first developed. And it was mentioned by Miles that the fence life is 12, 15 years. Well, we're looking at 20 years plus.
yeah,
And with that swale that was there, it's everything off that field comes towards that fence as a collector.
right,
And it's,
right.
doesn't run straight at all.
Okay, no, because it's a big stretch, right?
Yeah, and the posts are all rotten and
Yeah. Well, this is good. It'll be a nice new fence then. So. Okay,
I have a couple
Yeah.
comments then. Okay, so I appreciate you coming out first off. Being the only guy from your neighborhood to show up speaks to, I mean, to me as a committee member to hear from you. I'll come off of my access point to Powder Ridge there. I won't pursue that after hearing from you. I don't disagree with you that there should be a egress point to the north. I don't know how feasible it is, and it would require cooperation by the looks of it. Sorry, I'm just looking at my map here with MTS.
it's their road.
Right. It looks like that. I'm trying to click through.
it'd be a lot easier on fire trucks, garbage trucks
I don't
also.
disagree with
They're
that.
not
Something-
turning around and backing up. And
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just think that that would be something a developer would have to come to an agreement with them on. So we can't, from my perspective here, looking at the application, I don't think we can mandate that that be an egress, given it's a private road. But I don't disagree with you on it, I want to say. So my understanding, now moving on to the fence piece, that is the eastern border of your property. First
Right.
off, yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so I could see why you have an interest in this. Your backyard looks like something that I would like. But my understanding from the drawing, and I could be wrong, is that there will be, or does it say an existing wood commercial fence?
No, I knew what I'm saying.
yeah. From what I understand, the drawing indicated existing.
Yeah.
fence.
So I'm not opposed to having a new fence constructed there as a part of the approval. To be on the developer there, just a similar wood fence. We can talk about it in our deliberations here, but I hear you on that, and I don't think that the developer, we could hear back from the applicant on this, but it'd be an investment into the new development potentially going in there anyway. Are you aware that it looks like abutting your property, it's a 22 foot 3-inch space that's been allowed for there? I'm looking at the map here, so with the other east-west aligned condos, there's 4 foot 10-inch, 5 foot even, and then a 22 foot 3-inch along your property line. Were you familiar with that?
Not really, because, yeah, had limited access. I just came back into town.
Okay,
from-
sure. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. There's a considerably greater distance from the potential unit that's being built there to the fence line, or property line. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for you. Is there anything else that you want to add at all?
No, not at this time. Those were my major concerns, and just talking with members of the community, the traffic density was probably their biggest concern.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, I hear you. I won't pursue a second access point there that would essentially be in your front yard.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else from the committee? No, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
We have no one else registered to speak with respect to the application, just confirming no one else in the gallery is looking to register to speak with respect to the application. There are questions for the public service?
Yeah, maybe you could go into a little bit about what the proponent said about servicing on Powder Ridge. what's that all about?
So the initial developer of Powder Ridge and Falcon Ridge installed these services. Under development agreement parameters, the city is obligated to collect on their behalf for the services they installed and repay them. So that is what we are endeavoring to do here, is to collect on behalf of the original developer and repay them for the services they installed that benefit this land. Since this is fronting the land, it is deemed to benefit. As far as McGilvery, it's an arterial road. As per the development agreement parameters, we are collecting on behalf of I understand it to be the north developer who installed McGilvery or twinned it, on their behalf to reimburse them.
So it's not even for
not for
Linden
the city.
Ridge. It's not for Linden Ridge, it's for McGilvery.
Well,
It's not-
there's three charges, right? There's one for Powder Ridge, one for Falcon Ridge, and one for McGilvery. McGilvery is, again, we did a cursory review yesterday, just to see where the paybacks were going. And it looked like McGilvery on the cursory review was going to the developer, who happens to be the same developer, to the development to the north. And it was the same thing for this development. This development also paid the development for the north, for McGilvery.
Well, I'll rescind my comments about the department taking the money then. That's incorrect, but I mean,
So then
now,
the cost for Falcon Ridge,
yeah,
we're
if you
trying
don't mind,
to unload,
just.
we're trying to provide it to them.
If you don't mind me, just sorry, finish, thanks.
Sure.
So Falcon Ridge, we want to collect for the developer of Linden Ridge neighborhood.
For the developer who installed the services in Falcon Ridge, and which I believe was Linden Ridge Development Corp.
Okay.
Which is a subsidiary of
So then there's an additional fee for fronting on Powder Ridge.
correct. So where the site fronts Powder Ridge, it's 41.94 meters. Works out to be about 179,000.
And then an
175.
additional servicing fee for the northern boundary on McGilvery.
So that is the arterial road fee that we would charge any development when they come to rezone from R5 or AG or agricultural. We would charge for one lane of an arterial road,
Although they don't have access,
even though they don't have access.
that's in all scenarios.
That's consistent with the development agreement parameters.
And what's the fee on that?
Shoot.
About
230,000.
230. I've come across this multiple times.
Yeah, these are consistent with the development agreement parameters. This is just, again, we negotiated these or brought them forward in conjunction with UDI, with industry, on the fairest way to divide up development costs. This is what
Yeah.
was asked. This is what we're following.
Okay, and what about the comments made about the maintenance under Balkan Ridge that they're acquiring? So then they, Condo Corp essentially would take on the responsibility for that?
I would, so looking at all the services under Falcon Ridge, they're all PVC. PVC has a very long expected lifespan with very low maintenance costs. I don't think the underground is going to be a large maintenance cost. The concrete, all those services only services one development. And it's logical to deem them private at that point when they only service one development. The city likes to own infrastructure that services multiple properties within the city. And as soon as it's only servicing a single development or a single property, typically it's private. So that's Water and Waste indicated that they would deem these as private since it now only would service a single property. Currently they're public because it was envisioned to service additional lands that were going to be single families. And it's similar with the road, along with the maintenance issue of the road. If we were going to make this, if we were going to maintain interest in the Falcon Ridge right away, we would request maintenance agreement. Since it only services the single property, as well as we would ask for standard street lighting to bring it up to our standards.
Right.
To service it in a safe manner. But my understanding is that we are selling it for a nominal fee. Just because, again, it's not serving the city, it's a liability for the city.
Sorry, what is the nominal fee there? I think I heard it at some point.
I never closed the conversation, but I was led to believe it was $1.
$1 for Falcon Ridge?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought we heard twice as much and it was gonna be $3.
We are asking for repayment for the original developer for the services they installed.
Right.
Sewer, water.
Okay. Because again, the original developer probably shouldn't have to write off the cost to install the road to service the property.
I don't understand that.
And then we provide, and this is in this case, in any case, we provide the developer like actual documentation that says, here's what they paid, the original developer paid for this, like we know.
We would be charging the local improvement rates at this stage since it's been so long.
So we don't know what the repayment to the original developer is going to be.
At the time that the original development was put through, the DAPS had the repayment rate, the development agreement parameters had used the local improvement rates for the repayments.
And that's what it's.
So that is what we were doing. As that would be the intent of the original agreement.
Any other questions at all? Do we have any comment on what the resident requested regarding having access onto MTS property there? What would be the city's standpoint on that?
What the applicant has proposed is acceptable to the city, so we didn't look for further options. I personally didn't investigate that at all.
And then my suggestion on imposing on the developer to construct a 6-foot wood fence along the western boundary, the southwestern boundary of the property there. Does the public service have any issue with that?
Southwestern boundary? You mean along?
Northwestern boundary,
It's,
adjacent to 86 Outer Ridge.
We can accommodate that in multiple ways if you wish. We could have it in the zoning agreement to run with the property, and we could also put the construction obligation itself in the development agreement.
I'm just gonna do a quick measurement here, approximately 150 feet. Okay, I have no other questions. Anybody else?
No.
Committee?
No.
No? All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so the applicant is entitled to speak in rebuttal to comments made, but no new information is permitted. So Miles, you're welcome to speak in rebuttal to comments you heard. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thanks. Just a couple of things real quick. First of all, I'm happy to build that fence. Be my pleasure. With regards to the infrastructure costs, which you say is logical, and I certainly appreciate that. But the only thing I may ask is that when this was put in 25 years ago, I know because I know what it costs today to build a home versus what it cost 25 years ago. The original developer, no way paid the same rate, the $345,000 for 150 feet as what we're being charged. So does that mean the original developer is going to turn 50%, 60% profit on the infrastructure that they put in?
We'll just, no questions at this point in time, we'll take that as a comment.
Sorry. Yeah, that's what I issue. Number two, I noticed that where a city is expropriating a portion of the property that runs along McGilvery Boulevard. I assume.
Direct your comments through the chair, please.
My apologies.
Thank you.
I assume there'll be some compensation for that expropriation.
Just please say that again. Make that statement again.
The city is expropriating 7.5 feet along McGilvery Boulevard from our property. I assume that there'll be some compensation for that would offset potential costs that we would have to incur for infrastructure and so on.
Thank you for pointing that out.
I understand that the city is saying that it's one lot because it's zoned as one, but there's 51 homes. This isn't, I mean, it's one lot because it's a condo corp, but there's 51 homes, which will be paying, each home will be paying their own share of property taxes. I can understand if it was one home paying, you know, a small amount of $6,000 a year on property taxes, but there's 51 homes that we're servicing with this, that each will be paying their own share of property taxes. I just don't think it's just, I mean, I'm going to do it if I'm forced to do it, but I just don't think that's fair.
Okay, any other comments? Just one moment. We'll allow for questions. Obviously, in that part, there's no new information at this point in time, so we can just get clarification on what the applicant has stated here in his rebuttal.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, just so clarification, you don't think that the 3 separate charges are fair, or just please give me clarification on that?
The fact that we have to reimburse the infrastructure costs because the city is deemed it's for servicing a single lot. That's my understanding, is that that was the reason we're forced to purchase the road and the infrastructure under the road, is it's only purchasing a single, it's only providing services to a single lot. While that is the case, it is one lot that's zoned residential multifamily small. There are 51 homes on that lot.
So how would you see this, if you could make a recommendation, what would your recommendation be?
Well, I believe that our 51 homes will be utilizing the sewer and water services and paying a fee monthly in order to do so. All we're doing is the city is providing us the services that our residents are paying fees on. We have to, yeah, I just don't think it's fair that we have to
It's
pay.
51 titles.
Yeah, there's 51 titles, correct.
Good point.
And then the comments you made, you want to provide any further clarification just on that Falcon Ridge was installed, you're acknowledging that the developer at the time incurred that cost of the infrastructure. However, you claim that it would be upwards of, and I'm guessing you ballpark, but 60% higher value. And if you have a number for the committee, I'm hearing 300 and something $1,000.
Yes, so I don't know the exact cost of infrastructure for this particular development when it was originally put in. All I know is when I originally became, I built at the annex in 2007, my costs were 60% less than my infrastructure costs, for example, on Allard in 2025. So I assume the developer who originally put the infrastructure in paid significantly less back then than they would now. So I'm hoping that our fee is reflected.
That's a little bit of clarification on that.
And what are you being charged for Falcon Ridge?
Well, you guys have a per foot fee that you charge for infrastructure. And for the 150 feet, this is the only thing that I was told, is for the 150 feet of Falcon Ridge, it was approximately $345,000.
Any other questions at all? This is the last opportunity for the applicant. No? Okay, seeing none other. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So we can ask questions now?
Yeah,
Public
for sure.
service. So to clarify, the costs that he will be paying from the first developer are today's prices?
Yeah, so there's a 54.6% increase from the time the pipes were installed. The local improvement rates have typically followed that. So the rates are pretty much in line with inflation. I know the developers had multiple conversations, including today, about the cost of carrying the debt without getting repaid and the cost of inflation and the loss. ultimately, this is discussed in depth at the development agreement parameters review, and this is what we settled on as being the most equitable solution to the repayment of services installed by the first developer from the second.
So the first developer puts it in, let's say it costs $100. You're saying with inflation,
It would be $154.
so really? Why not what he paid when he put it in?
So his capital has been tied up in this
Sure.
in that time. If he put it in a general interest account, he would have received $154.
And when the development parameter review went on, when that process was about a year and a half, this is what you came to
We
the
certainly
conclusion.
had that conversation, and we're continuing to have that conversation with the development community. We are always looking for the most equitable way, and 100% the developer who installs it is always going to have a different position than the developer who has to repay them. The development agreement parameters really is what the city likes to adhere to for consistency, and so that we're predictable in nature, and that developers can put reasonable confidence in their performance at the time of making investments.
So what is the rate then again? What did you say it was?
Sorry, for which one?
For the increase that he'll be paying?
Again, I looked at the CPI in the increase. The pipes were installed in 2004, and that's a 54.6% increase just based on CPI.
Okay. I see both sides of that. Do you have any questions on this one? I mean, the original developer has had his money tied up. I get that. When he put it in, right? He has had it tied up. So this is what the argument is that the public service is saying, and the UDI and everyone, that it's an inflationary rate, or what rate are you calling it? What's it called?
Well, the rate that we're using here is the local improvement rates, which
The local improvement rates.
yeah, they're posted rates.
Right,
And it's transparent
right. And you base it on the local improvement rates
at time of payment.
at time of payment from when it was installed. Okay,
Well, today's the posted rates at the time we invoice for the
right.
obligation.
But you go back to when it was built. Okay.
And I'm looking at these properties that abut Falcon Ridge, and we can assume it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2005.
Pipes went in the year earlier, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about the one accessing one, because it is 51 titles.
100%, and I think we're confounding the issues. The original developer, regardless of this, if this was a property development, would still expect to get repaid. So the pipes is sort of based on this land is being rezoned and the payment of it. The road, same thing. It's road to access this development. The reason that we want to sell the road, and the only reason we want to sell the road, is because it's a common, end up leading into the common element of this development, right? So it'll be owned by the condo corp, the main thoroughfare of the road, including hopefully Falcon Ridge. They're two different issues. The pipe payments are based on he's rezoning this land today. These are services that benefit the zoning of his land. If he was subdividing into 8,000 pieces, we would still be asking him to pay the single fee.
Right.
How he divides it amongst his customers is up to him. Or up to the applicant, sorry. So it's really two issues. And I apologize for confounding the closing of the road and the selling of it with the payments, because they are not the same.
Right, no, I hear you. Right, because the developer still the original developer is being reimbursed for the work that he put in underneath the pipes and whatever.
And again, we're collecting on their behalf and reimbursing. We're not, this isn't going into general.
Okay.
And then the development agreements are all based on paying back for all the work that was done in the past.
We endeavor to collect on their behalf.
on their behalf. And if we didn't collect, who's liable? We are. We'd have to pay it regardless. Somebody has to pay
I'm
it.
not a lawyer.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to invest $100 per se into a project and then 20 years down the road find out that, oh, by the way, we're just going to ignore your investment.
Correct.
Right.
And
Okay.
Is there any historical information on why the developer didn't develop the remainder of Falcon Ridge?
they didn't own it. They didn't own this property. The city would have asked them to accommodate in their plan all the lands. Because we also don't want to orphan it. So if Falcon Ridge was not extended to this property, then we'd be landlocked or forced to go to McGilvery. Alternatively, we've had a couple, and it's kind of a headache on the flip side is when you just open the road and you don't put the concrete in, then the question is who maintains that. Parks doesn't really see value in expending money and sending on a mower to maintain it, and it's unreasonable to ask the adjacent homeowners. We base our decisions or our recommendations on the best knowledge at the time, and we weren't aware of how long it would take for this to come forward.
Okay. I won't ask again, but so Powder Ridge Drive, the small portion there of how many ever feet it is, approximately 135 feet. Why do they have to pay for servicing there? Because they're going to be pulling from a pipe that's under there?
Because their property fronts it.
Because their property fronts it, but the property in the application is fronting McGilvery.
Sorry, it has frontage / flankage. So again, yes, it has frontage and flankage, and I use it interchangeably. I'm sorry. Because it's all the same to me. Sure.
And there's a repayment to the developer for that vacant 130 some odd feet.
137 feet.
137 feet. Wow. And when was the applicant made aware of all of this?
Looking back, the earliest, I haven't done a thorough search, but my understanding was January 25th, he was aware.
January which?
25th of 2025. My number was provided and I never received a call, so I don't follow up if they don't reach out to me.
I mean, I understand it, right? It's like I'm looking at a lot of the development in Waverly West Ward. Developers putting in stuff. He's going to have to get paid back at some point because he's putting in a lot of roads, a lot of pipes beside lands that they don't own, but the city's making them do it. Well, I mean, not making them, but I mean, it's logical. It makes sense.
For
To
organization.
continue opening up and doing the development, right? So I totally get that. I understand it. We're dealing with this 25 years later, right? I'm dealing with it today. So eventually the chicken comes home to roost sort of thing. This is what's happening here. So, I mean, it's logical, it's understandable. It's not ideal for the current developer.
But
The stuff went in, had this development maybe not been condominiums, had it been houses, another house beside this one, another house on Powder Ridge, it still would have, I mean, it's got the services, yes, pay for it.
The only thing we would be changing is that we wouldn't be trying to make Falcon Ridge a private access.
Right.
That's the only thing.
Right.
And again, if we weren't trying to make it private, we would be trying to upgrade it with lighting and other amenities.
And if it wasn't to be made private, then the 150 feet of it and the 345,000 approximately wouldn't be applied?
It would still be it's applied. That's right.
the development agreement parameters would always apply it.
Yeah.
The rezoning would always trigger it. The only difference here is, again, it's two issues. One is the payment of services to pay back the original developer. The other one is the long-term maintenance of services that only service a single lot. So the only thing that changes is the ownership. So we're asking for a very nominal fee. Water and Waste, I don't think is asking for any fee. They're just handing over the pipes saying they're yours. Because they only service the property. Yes, I know there's 55 homes, but it's the same thing with an apartment block or anything else. There's a common element that they all pool.
Yeah.
This would be part of it.
Yeah, like I see millions going into Waverly West that the developer's not going to be collecting on for years on, which they're choking on, but
And
they have to do it to develop and service what they're building now. And eventually there'll be payback on this other stuff. So.
And all the new stuff we are tracking, and we do have those costs. They are coming in we've updated the DAPs. So now we get to track all those costs as well and index them to the CPI. So it's a similar mechanism. I would say the local improvement is actually trending lower than the actual cost.
And the actual cost, yeah.
So, and to be honest, they came down this year. Or 2025 at least.
So the expectation when this was done in 2024, you're saying was that they would be paying whatever set rate of increase that we determine in our bylaws? Is that
In 2004, they would have been expected. The expectation would be the recovery would be based on the local improvement at time of invoicing. So
they would expect to make a 54.6% increase?
Or well, they wouldn't know in
they wouldn't know, but
2004.
they would have expected to get
Something.
$2,004.
Yeah.
Sorry, the 2004 value of dollar in whatever year they got paid back.
Yeah, it's not fun, but I mean, it is like if you're the first developer there and you're putting the money in, you want your payback.
And there's no scenarios where we have just charged whatever the developer incurred originally as a cost?
I would love to do that if I had access to the costs. But it's 2004. It's pretty hard to dig up.
And they have had
And
the
we did
money
it.
tied up.
And if they did provide me the cost, I would still index them to CPI from the time they invested.
Which would come up with the same number?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Not an actuary.
I've seen, I noticed the land drainage pipe is a 450. That's running higher than the local improvement. You know what I mean? Like there's so many nuances to it that I can't.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. I'm ready to make a motion.
If you want the fence, if you could give us a minute to make the amendment.
Yeah, Councilor's public service just indicating where the fence along the, they just need a moment.
Sure. Okay, so we take a break or?
Oh, sorry, we didn't answer the question. Sorry, what's the compensation for expropriation?
Oh, yeah, right.
So I wouldn't use the word expropriation, but under the DAPs.
Annexation, what is it like? Taking from them?
I would call it a road widening. But yeah, sure. Under the development agreement parameters, again, we have the ability, it has been agreed that the city can take road widenings that facilitate the development. McGilvery is a regional road. I would assume we will have compensation for them. The rate would be 177 per acre, 177,000 per acre.
177,000
Per acre.
And what are you taking? What are we taking?
Well, he said about 7.5 feet, but we don't know the square footage. So you have but it's a standard rate in the development agreement parameters.
It's a
So they
standard.
will be compensated back for Well mistaken. It's to straighten it out. It's kind of joggy there.
That's 8 feet here.
And that's built in, that's,
That'll be reconciled.
okay.
So we just don't know the amount that we're gonna give them?
I don't know
Seem pretty accurate on all the other amounts.
I don't know the area, sorry. I can do the math if you
It's
wish.
7.5 feet by whatever it is. It doesn't have the square footage. When does that percolate up? When you're finalizing?
I'm just working, I'm sorry, I would work it into the development agreement that it's credited to the other charges. Seems impossible. It is, my math has it at, about 2,700 square feet, 0.063 acres.
60 acres, minor, small, but still,
So about $10,800.
10 grand.
I'm not saying it's like, you know what I mean, in the grand scheme of all the other numbers, it's, yeah.
Cost of the fence.
Okay, so you need some time to work the fence text in, or did you do it?
Do you want it around? So
Okay.
let's take a brief break here. Shouldn't, we can take a 3-minute break, please. Welcome back to the Assiniboia Community Committee. We are at the portion of our item here before us for motions, and I believe Councillor Lukes is prepared to move on by
Item number
3,
3.
4, and 5.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with item number 3. Closing of Falcon Ridge Drive, east of Powder Ridge Drive for consolidation. So I will move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forward to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's the
Opposed?
closure.
Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council.
Okay, so now on the subdivision and rezoning, I'll find the section here. Okay, here we go. That the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That receipt of the public presentations, representations be concluded.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay. So now I'm going to move with amendments that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in. Do you want me to put the,
We can go through the amendments now if you'd like. It would be forwarded to the Standing Policy
Right.
Committee on Property and Development.
okay. So we'll go through the amendments, and Madam Clerk, I want you to read the amendment related to the fencing. We'll put the fencing in.
Sure. So I think we just noticed that there was an error in the numbering in the report. So in recommendation to A, the conditions listed in 2A as 2 and 3, so the height of any building and the number of dwelling units, those should actually be subclauses B and C rather than 2 and 3. So if the committee wishes, you could delete those clauses as 2 and 3 as a subclause of A, and then renumber them, add them back in as B and C.
Yeah.
And then add a further condition on the zoning, which states that the owner shall erect a solid wood fence with a height of 6 feet along the portion of the west property line abutting the property at 86 Powder Ridge Drive to be constructed and maintained to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, Property and Development.
Okay, so we want to add the fencing in, so that adds the fencing in. And then in Appendix B, the report of the Administrative Coordinating Group, that the payment not be at the time of the release of Mylars, but it be on demand.
Okay,
So I think there's a few locations in here where it talks about the Mylars.
So Kevin, I think are they all under section 3 servicing conditions?
Correct.
Falcon Ridge, regional
So-
drainage.
It's 2 Powder Ridge Drive.
Correct. Changed prior to the release of subdivision Mylars for registration in Winnipeg Land Titles Office to on demand.
And that's also for
3B.
number 3B. Okay. So 2, 3B, 4, I believe.
If we're okay, I would leave 4. That's the TSR payment.
Are you okay with that, Counselor?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 and 3B.
What is TSR payment?
So there's sorry, it's for the regional land drainage. It's a much more complex repayment mechanism that is a revolving account. So as it fills up, it gets paid out to the next one in line. So it's not to a single developer, it's more of a citywide.
And this is not new.
This is an acre charge for the regional to convey for the lake systems. But, I would suggest that the payment here is going to, it goes into the account to repay the next developer who constructs regional land drainage.
Yeah. It's not
Sorry.
in 5, but there is a reference to.
Yeah, do you mind if we just add on demand after in cash in number 5?
Okay, so in 5, the developer shall pay to the city in cash on demand. Okay.
Thank you. And 7.
So 7, we are deleting
Prior to
prior
release.
to the release of Mylars, replacing with on demand as well.
Prior registration for.
Yes, the full.
Yeah, as well.
Okay.
And then 8.
Okay.
And that should be it.
Okay, so just to summarize for the committee, the changes to Appendix B in Section 3 servicing conditions, we are in clauses 2, 3B, 7, and 8. We are deleting the words prior to the release of subdivision Mylars for registration in the Winnipeg Land Titles Office and replacing with on demand. And in 5, we're adding the words on demand after the words in cash.
Sorry. Yes.
Do you want me to go over them?
Just my organization.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Normally it's water, wastewater, land drainage. On this one, it's street by street. So it's just, sorry.
No worries. Okay, and then those changes to recommendation 2, just renumbering 2 and 3 as subclauses of A to B and C, adding the condition of fencing as new clause D to number 2.
Okay. Okay. So that's the motion put forward. Now, do I give my reasons now or do I give my reasons after?
Yes, so you're moving the recommendation of public service with the amendments noted. That would be forwarded to the
Standing
standing policy
policy
on
committee on
property development.
development.
And now you're supporting reasons.
And the supporting reasons are the development that is being proposed is low density development in an established neighborhood that is a highly desirable development for the demographics it's serving. It's a great development.
That's it. I just wanted to add something, if you'd be amendable to it, that, I recall a development that we had come through ACC, where we had the developer and the past developer negotiate offline. Maybe the public service can help me here with this, but they sorted out the eventual cost.
That's a great idea. I can look up to connect the 2 developers and if they can sort it out, and relieve the city of our obligation to collect. We can certainly work that in. I don't think we need an amendment for that. That would just be that they've paid their share. We would acknowledge it.
Okay, so that would be similar to what we've done. This wouldn't be setting a new precedence. This would just be,
We've done it in the past.
okay, and it does not need to be an additional
It does
amendment?
not need to be amended.
Okay, then I will leave that to the public service to work with the applicant, and I'll be supporting Councillor Luke's motion then, if that's the case.
Sure.
Okay,
It doesn't have a negative impact on the immediate surrounding community. Okay, so just read that back.
Okay, so we have the development that is being proposed is low-density development in an established neighborhood, that it is a highly desirable development for the demographic it's serving, and that it's a great development and doesn't have any immediate impact on the surrounding community.
Supporting reasons.
and I'll just add to that, the developer has a proven track record of developing this type of
Sure.
housing or for this demographic.
That's a proven track record. Very good projects, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Call the question on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
And that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the variance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the variance. Okay, here we go. That the report of the public service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
That the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
That in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. Does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. It is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. Same supporting reasons as the subdivision and rezoning.
Thank you. Nothing else to add there. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is also carried.
That the recommendation of the public service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Thank you everyone for your patience on that. Appreciate the public service working with the committee on that. Moving on, item number 6.
Item 6 is a variance at Country Meadow Boulevard under file DAV 241968 of 2025D. Please note additional communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. Process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Speakers will be permitted 5 minutes for their presentations. All participants in the Zoom meeting have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. If you'd like a brief overview from the public service.
Sure.
Lots 1 and 2 on Country Meadow Boulevard in the Prairie Point neighborhood in Waverly West are zoned residential multifamily large and are within the recent community policy area under Complete Communities 2.0. The applicant is intending to construct 4 6-story multifamily buildings with 416 total units over 2 phases. The site is currently vacant greenfield. The surrounding area is also vacant with plans for future residential use. There are 4 variances the applicant is applying for. The first variance is for reduced parking from a rate of 1.5 to 1.3. The proposal includes 328 bicycle parking stalls where 63 are required. The applicant has also provided evidence their properties across the city have an average occupied rate of 1.01. Public Service recommends approving this variance. 2 landscaping variances are required for the same shared property line along lots 1 and 2. The property line runs through the middle of the proposed parking lot, which would service all 4 buildings in a cross-access agreement. Landscaping is required on the edge of a parking lot along a property line, in this case on both sides of the property line. Public Service recommends approving the variances and moving half the required landscaping, which would be one side, which is 16 trees and 86 shrubs, elsewhere on the property in addition to other landscaping requirements as the parking lot use is consistent on both sides of the property line. The final variance is a front yard variance. Lot 2 has no proposed front yard along Keniston Boulevard where 25 feet is required for a parking lot. However, this setback is only not met along the corner of one parking stall. Otherwise, the setback of 25 feet is met. At this location, the property line is approximately 224 feet from Keniston Boulevard. Given the small variance required and the distance from Keniston Boulevard, Public Service recommends approving the variance. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure, so, sorry. So, variance number 3, put me on the right page of the lot.
That's for the landscaping?
Yeah, variance number 3.
Yes.
Variance number 3 is the distance.
Sorry, are you asking about the setback or the?
Variance number 3.
variance number three?
You read out
Oh,
3.
sorry, yeah, when I read out 3, that is, so that's the landscaping for a parking lot that runs through the middle of the property on the property line. No.
This was the last one.
Okay, sorry, yeah. For that one, that's the, hold on, I had the page here before, let me find it, go to page 22.
Okay, that's 22 on my report, not
Yeah,
yours.
22 of 31.
22, okay, yeah, 22.
So if you look at the southwest corner of the property, you can
Southwest.
see the
Oh, yeah,
25
right,
feet setback
right,
line where it runs
right,
along the edge.
right.
And it's that one tiny little corner
Got
of
it.
the parking lot
Got it.
where it doesn't match or doesn't meet the 25 feet.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Okay. So can.
How many bike parking spots are we talking about here?
We
We have to have bike police out there. I know, it's just funny.
We've got the best trail network in the city, better than the Hart Trail. Hundreds of Hart Trails. I spent many hours before I was elected at community committee meetings till midnight on all these trails and pathways.
Right.
And if you can believe it, here I am now. I got what I wanted, right? Isn't that wild? I can't even believe that, but
It's a long game.
sitting there fighting with, they got till midnight on those meetings, fighting with Swandell and that whole crowd. Anyways, here I am.
All right.
Okay.
If there are no more questions, so we can hear from the applicant, Brad McGregor, who's joining us via Zoom. Brad, we've just asked you to start your video and your microphone, and you have up to 5 minutes for your presentation, and you can proceed.
Excuse me. Please go ahead.
1 second, let me just share my screen here. I've got a presentation ready here. Just want to make sure everyone can see what I can see there.
Yeah.
Should be a blue screen. Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, councilors and members of the administration. My name is Brad McGregor, Development Manager with Broad Street Properties. I'll be speaking in support of our variance application for our proposed development in the Prairie Point neighborhood called West Point Apartments.
Oh. In South Point.
I'll start with a brief introduction of Broad Street Properties for anyone who's unfamiliar with our organization. We're a real estate development company, along with our sister company, Seymour Pacific Developments. Broad Street owns and operates over 16,000 apartments across Western Canada in 30 municipalities with over 3,000 units across 14 properties in Winnipeg alone. We have a dirt-to-door philosophy, meaning we're involved in all stages of development from purchasing the land, development approvals, construction, and property management for the lifespan of the building. Just a quick look at our overall site plan here for both phases of our development. As the administrator mentioned, the subject in the Waverly West Ward in South Point neighborhood, the Prairie Point development in the southwest corner of Keniston Boulevard and Waverly Street. a quick look at the site as it is now. Both parcels are zoned residential multifamily large, and both phases will include 2 6-story apartment buildings with 1 level of underground parking and shared surface parking between the 2 lots. More specifically, the development will include 410 units in total, with a mix of suite sizes, 540 parking spaces total, 361 bicycle stalls, and tenant amenities, including fitness room, community lounges, a community garden, a playground, covered barbecue and seating areas, a sport court, and a dog run. As mentioned, the variances we are proposing for this development are as follows. For phase 1, to permit 265 parking stalls instead of a required 302, and allow no side yard buffering for a parking lot area within 20 feet of a residential district. And for phase 2, to permit 275 parking stalls instead of 323, insufficient side yard buffering of a parking area and no front yard to an open parking area. As mentioned, we're looking to reduce the number of parking spaces where provided. The bylaw requires 1.5 stalls per unit, and we are proposing a ratio just over 1.3. With over 3,000 units in Winnipeg alone, we also manage and track the data for our tenant stall usage. And across the 14 developments we have in Winnipeg, we see an average utilization of just over 1 stall per residential unit. The chart here shows the usage for all of our developments in Winnipeg, with the properties in South Winnipeg highlighted. Our proposed ratio still includes the bylaw requirements for visitor parking and accessible parking. Additionally, we're proposing to add a significant amount of bicycle parking to the development. We're looking at 361 total bicycle stalls, which include 80 short-term or outdoor spaces in racks and 281 long-term or indoor weather-protected parking spaces, either in main floor bike rooms by the lobby or in rooms in the parkade of each building. The second proposed variance is related to reduce landscape buffering from a residential side yard to a parking area. Typically, the side yard is a division between 2 separate properties, but as these 2 phases will ultimately function as one property once completely built out, the side yard, as shown in the red here along the mutual property line, does not really physically separate the two lots. We've proposed additional tree planting to spread it out over the site. The third variance, to allow parking area in the front yard. This pertains specifically to the phase 2 lot as it is considered a through lot, so it's got 2 front yards, one on Kenaston Boulevard and one on Country Meadow Boulevard, where the main access will be. This variance is related to the front yard facing Kenaston Boulevard, which is at least 100 feet away from Kenaston at the farthest south corner, and functions more of a backyard than what you would typically think as a front yard. There's existing fencing there as well, which we intend to maintain here. Moving forward from this hearing, our next steps would be to get our application quickly to a plan approval and submit a development permit application for phase 1, followed by building permit applications for the 2 phase 1 buildings as well. And from there, we have a planned construction start for June of this year, with phase 2 to follow in 2028. That's my presentation for now. So I appreciate your time on the matter, and I welcome any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you being on your 5 minutes. Very well done.
Right on time.
Is that all from committee?
No questions on this. We understand it. It's going to be great. We really appreciate it. But we will be talking about the color when we come to the plan of. I mean it. Like, I know this sounds pathetic, but we don't want another brown thing there. So, anyways,
yeah,
talk about that at plan approval.
For sure. Yeah, no, we can keep that conversation going. I know it's been a little bit ongoing with a bit of a delay there.
No problem. Thanks, Brad. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. And any questions for the public service at this point in time?
No, it's very clear. Or for me, it's very clear.
Nice project.
No, it's a great project. Like, it's a fantastic project. It's going to be even better. So,
Could be the greatest project ever.
okay. Okay, I'll make up.
I'll hand it back
Oh, no.
over to the clerk to run us through the process here.
So I should just note that there's no one in the gallery, so there's no one else registered to speak in support, in opposition, or with respect to this application. So if there are questions for the public service? Nope. Okay, so technically the applicant is entitled to speak in rebuttal to comments made. Brad, did you have any rebuttal that you wanted to?
Nope, I've got nothing here.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read,
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
that the receipt of public representations be concluded,
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried.
that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan of Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. It does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. It is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. The supporting reasons for supporting these variances, this is experienced developer that understands the parking for the facilities that they build. The shared lot use is reallocating the vegetation, and there's just a tiny little corner which needs a variance to enable the project to go forward. So, supporting reasons.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Carried.
That the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved,
All in favor? Aye. Those
And-
opposed? Carried.
and that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none? Carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Thank you very much. Room for adjournment. So
Motion
moved by
for
Councilor
adjournment.
Dobson, all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. We'll see you back at the February meeting of ACC.
Perfect.
Thank you all.